Welcome to Training Bytes, a digestible approach to Counterpoint training. Today's topic is building a new store. Before we get started, let's do a little housekeeping. So, a little housekeeping before we get into the meat of the topic. We have on your toolbar, you should have a Q&A button. And if you do, that's where we prefer you to enter your questions. If for some reason you don't have a Q&A button, feel free to use the chat button. We will check both at the end of the session, and we will hold the Q&A till the end of the session. My name is Marty Katz. I'm a project lead at C&K Systems, and I am swapping out duties this month with Gina Thomas, our training manager, who is trying to keep me on track.
Good morning, everyone.
All right. So one question that we get from time to time is, how can I track web sales in Counterpoint separate from my existing store? And there's a couple of reasons, or how can track web sales. So one of the reasons for that would be so that you have sales reports for your web store separate from your physical store. And you may be opening a new brick and mortar store, a new physical location. I do get those requests from time to time. Fortunately, physical retail is still alive and well, and people are expanding, acquiring new locations. So those are two reasons you would want to create a new store. You want to do this particularly because running sales through an existing store can skew your data. How do you know, is your web store being profitable? How do you know if your new physical location is being profitable? If you don't plan right, your inventory can get out of alignment. And when you go to ring sales, if you're running everything through one store, credit card companies tend to frown on that because the zip code doesn't match and the customer may initiate a chargeback, or the money isn't going to the correct checking account because you haven't set up a separate VAR sheet for that store. So in this session, we're going to learn how to build a new store. We're going to go through setting up a new store, a location for that store, a new work group, stations, drawers. You're going to have to create new inventory. So we'll go over creating inventory to stock the new store with inventory items. And then at the end, we're going to come back to that credit card issue that I talked about and setting up sales taxes if the sales taxes in your second location are different from your first. So let's hop right in. So what do we need to create a new store? We need a new location, except for a web store that's probably going to sell out of your existing location. We need a new store. We need stations and drawers just like any other store. And we need a work group to pull it all together. We need to create inventory, and we may need to set up new tax authorities and tax codes. So to set up a new location is fairly simple. Set up inventory locations, and you'll type in your name of your new location. Here we've cleverly named it New Lock, and the description is new location with a street address and a city and a state. You do need to enter a description. That description prints on your purchase orders, and the address you fill out on the screen will print on your purchase orders as well, so that your vendors know where to ship the merchandise. After we do a new location, we do a new store, and here we have, you want to enter the name of the new store, which we've cleverly named New Store, and you want to do a copy from. And the copy from button is right up there on the toolbar. You want to copy from an existing location, and then you're going to go through and you're going to enter the store description, which is the name of the store that's going to print on your receipt. You want to select a stocking location here, and we'll update text code if needed, but I'm not going to go over that right now. I'm going to save that till the end. While you're in the new store, you set up the main tab, you need to go over to the numbers tab, and I recommend setting up a new numbering sequence for each store. As you see, we've done that here. We want to set up so that they don't show up in sequence with other stores. It just makes it a little bit easier to look at a receipt. Which store did this come from? If you're looking at sales history and you want to find out what happened on a ticket, if you end up with 2 tickets with the same number, it can be confusing. So you want to do that, and then you click on Save. Once you've clicked Save, you have a new button on the top of above the toolbar, actually. Actually, we'll see where that is. I forget now, but it's called Pay Codes. And you have to select the pay codes that are going to be used at this store. As you see, Counterpoint supports many pay codes, including foreign pay codes. You can set those up as well. And you do this because you may not accept all forms of payment at a particular store. Perhaps you have a kiosk and you're not going to support AR charges. Maybe you have a store near the Canadian border and you want to accept Canadian dollars, but you may have someplace further downstate where you don't want to. So you select all the pay codes until you get the one that you want, and then you hit OK, and then you save your store again. Once you've set up a store, you can set up a new station. And again, you just type in your store name under Setup Point of Sale Stations. You want to set up your store name, and I recommend a unique station name, in this case, New Store 1. And you can copy this from another location, enter the description, and then save. And that's going to take care of a lot of your setup here under stations. Same thing with drawers. Drawers you don't need to copy from. You just type in your store ID, your new drawer ID, and your new store description. And I do recommend that all of these be unique. You don't want to have a bunch of station ones like we're going to see inside of the demo database. Type in those 3 bits of information and hit save. Okay, and finally we have a work group, and I consider the work group a combination of a specific store and a specific location. So for example, your web store, you probably don't need a new work group because it's not a unique location and store. It's just a unique store, okay, because it's going to sell out of your local inventory. But yes, you should go ahead. You want to enter a work group name. I use the copy from here as well. Enter a description for this work group. Pull in all the data down here and set it correctly and save. On the numbers tab, this will copy as well. And so you'll want to go through here. And if you use auto assign for any of these activities, auto assigning a new item number, a customer, I recommend making them unique so you can tell where they came from. And of course, under events, you definitely need to have an event set up that is unique to this store or this location, because you don't want your events to be confused. It gets very tricky when we go to do an audit trail. Click on Save, and then once you save your new work group, your batches button will set up, and just click on set up batches. All right, finally, or probably not finally, we have to set up our inventory. You may have run into this from time to time where you go to sell an item or purchase an item and it says this item is not stocked at this location. And that's because the inventory record wasn't created, or it was a grid item that isn't stocked at this particular location, either because it was added and not the inventory wasn't created properly, or there's no telling. So generally we recommend copying from another location. So we're going to copy, in this case, we're going to copy from our main. We're going to copy our bins and our min maxes. Not required, but it just usually gets everything off to a nice start. And we're going to create for a specific location. Click on create, you'll get a couple of pop-ups. If you're an active store, if you're doing this in the middle of the business day, you will get a message that says, people are running Counterpoint right now. Are you sure you want to do this? Because it may slow down the system because it's a little bit of a processor intense activity. So now let's see what this looks like in Counterpoint. And hopefully I won't be dragging these back and forth all day, but bear with me if I do. So the first thing we do is we want to do setup, inventory, locations. And I'm just going to call this north. Inside of Counterpoint, we have several other places, but we have East, Main, and storage. So I'm going to copy from East. I'm going to change this to North. Put in my updated address. If everything was always that simple, wouldn't it be nice? And you see, I'm changing my address here. I'll cover that, why I did that in a minute, why I chose another state. So I'll cover that in a minute. And then we just save. Not a lot to creating a new location. After a location, we're going to set up a new store. So set up point of sale stores. And again, I'm going to call this North. And I'm going to copy from my East store. Change this to North. It really should have a more descriptive name. In this case, Bluff City Golf North or something like that. But for demo purposes today, this is fine. We're going to choose our North location to sell out of. So default ship from location is North. And I happen to have location specific pricing enabled so we can charge more based on where my store is located. So I'm going to say use my prices from North as well. And again, I'm going to skip the tax code, but I'm going to go over here to numbers for right now. And then you see, we don't really have unique numbers here. It copied from our other store. And this is how I go about getting these set real quickly. You can be more descriptive in your numbering system if it's what you want. Some people put L's before the number. Some people put on a layaway an O before an order, T before a ticket, something like that. So not required, just as long as it makes sense to you. But you see, I just did that one here. And we're going to hit save. And if I've done this right, yay, I have a pay codes button that is now highlighted and is now available to be clicked. Here we go. Now, I wish when I was setting up a new store and I did a copy from, it would copy the pay codes, because probably 90% of the time you're going to, or even higher, you're going to use the same pay codes at every store. But I just hit the plus sign and There we go. I double click, plus sign, and double click. All right. I am in Arkansas. We don't need Canadian dollars. We do need cash. I do need, if I'm taking credit cards, these pay codes must be in there and in the name that they have. We like Amex for American Express, Discover for Discover. When we get down here, we want Visa for Visa. We want MasterCard for MasterCard. It just keeps things working well with your integrated credit card system. We go through here and get everything all nice and set up. You might see we had pesos down there. We're not going to use pesos. We may have a loyalty program, so we will take points. These are just the different pay codes that are going to be available. We hit save. One thing about this move up and down, it is not important if you use touchscreen ticket entry. If you're using regular ticket entry, and most of you don't even know what I'm talking about, this order bound matters. Most of you just know that you go in and you get into Counterpoint and you can ring sales. All right, after we do our store, we do our stations. I did click a button. It's just being pokey. All right, we're going to put in our store north. We're going to put our station number in S1. I'm going to copy from, see how mine here doesn't have station 1, 2. It's just one, it doesn't have any identifiers on it. That's sloppy in my opinion, but I didn't create that database. But I used copy from, and you'll see everything copied how I like it to. All these check boxes were checked. I didn't have to go through and hit each one. One thing that we like over here is if you have offline ticket entry, we usually put, sorry, wrong spot. Down here, we usually put the word OFF in front of the ticket number. Again, this tells us that if a ticket was rung in offline mode, we can tell by the ticket number. Again, very helpful in tracking things down. All righty, we hit save. And now we have a station and we're ready to go. And our next step, create a drawer. And all of these under setup, point of sale. I took a shortcut on the stations, but it's under setup, point of sale. Stations and drawers, they're in the same place. North Store. Eventually, I'm going to say North Star there. Drawer 1 and drawer North Store 1. That's probably one of the easiest things to create in Counterpoint is a new drawer. All right. Work group, and this is under setup, system, work groups. I'm going to create a work group. I'm going to copy from the East Store. We're going to call this the North Store work group. And remember I said a work group is a unifier or a grouping of a specific location, north, and a store ID as well. All right, we go to the numbers tab. All these things have got to be filled out if it's checked for auto assign. There's one thing that can't be unchecked for auto assign, and that's going to be your event. I usually use the same purchase order number as my receiver because it makes it easier to track the two together. But it's not required. It all depends up to you. Over here, I am a little bit pickier. I want this to be NSE. I like that E there because it tells me where it's coming from. Over here, I'm going to put in a next barcode number just in case we auto assign some barcodes, and then a next AR doc number. And we save that. And so now, whenever we go to create a new item, it's for this at this work group, it's going to be auto assigned. Same thing with our customers. If you don't want to auto assign, say you use the customer's phone number for a new customer number, you can always uncheck that box. And when you go to create a new customer, it will let you type it in. If it's got a check box next to auto assign, you'll never be able to type anything in that field. All righty. And then we're going to make up new batches. And batches are already on file. I must not have cleaned those up. Note to self, clean up batches before my next presentation. But a batch just segregates activities for this work group from activities in another work group. And I'm sure you've all seen when you go to post, if you go to purchase orders, requests, purchasing requests, there's a post button and it'll post everything in your batch. Well, if you're at the East store and you do that and everybody's using one big batch, then the East store will post for the North store, will post for the main store. And I think you can see where that would be confusing. So we use these batches to segregate those activities. So someone doesn't accidentally post for the whole company. They can only accidentally post for their own store. And I think, Gina, when you probably do your training, you explain where you should post for a particular receiver purchase request and things like that.
You know what my motto is? Post as you go along.
Post as you go along. Don't
That
put
is
them in
my
that
motto.
batch.
Yeah, just post them as you go along.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we will create inventory. So, and I just went to setup because everything else up until now has been under setup. Create inventory is not under setup. It's under inventory utilities. Create inventory. There it is, letter B. It may not be B on your screen when you get into your database, because these do move around. There we go. All right. So you see it came up, copy from another location. And again, I'm copying everything else from East. I'm going to copy these from East as well. Copy bin locations, copy min max. These are optional. You don't have to, particularly if you don't have the same bins or you're not using bins in your inventory. Don't worry about that. And we're going to create these for the North location. I'm going to hit create. And I don't have anybody else running Counterpoint, so it's not going to tell me that somebody else is in my company using it. So I won't get that message, but I should get another pop-up here before I actually start creating the inventory. Are you sure you want to create inventory? Yes, that's why I hit the create button. So yes, and now, as you can tell, I've made 100 inventory records, 127 cell records. Do you want to see the list of records created? Generally, I say no. I'm going to say yes just for your purposes. And see, it doesn't really tell me very much, except that we made a bunch of inventory records and we set some min maxes. Nothing really much exciting on that report, and we hit close. All right. And then finally, back over in the setup point of sale stores, I want to go over the taxes a little bit. Because first of all, if I had chosen to make this store in Tennessee, I would not need to do anything with my taxes, particularly if it was in Memphis, Tennessee. But I chose purposely to make it in Arkansas, and that's because I wanted to go through this one process. So I'm going to make a new tax code, and a tax code is a little bit like a work group. It's a collection of tax rules. And before I add that, do I want to save changes? No, I'm going to take a look at the Memphis, Tennessee tax code for a second. You see here, we have 3 tax authorities in Memphis, because if you can tax it in Tennessee, if it moves, they'll tax it. It's just so, and then everybody gets a cut. State of Tennessee gets a cut, Shelby County gets a cut, the city gets a cut. Everybody gets their finger in the pie. But we're going to make Arkansas here. And Arkansas. And I'm going to come over here. And again, I'm going to put in a tax authority. Tax authority is not on file. We're going to add that. And we're going to call this Arkansas State. Put in the address for the state tax authority or not. It doesn't really show anywhere. And then we're going to call this the state tax. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to call this the retail tax. And I'll explain why in a second. Because we're going to tell a lie, actually. We're going to say that Arkansas is more progressive than Tennessee and that they don't tax food. So we're going to make a retail sales tax over here, applies to the tax categories below retail. And we're going to tax those at the Maryland rate, because that I know off the top of my head, 6% on everything. Okay. And then I'm going to tab through here and hopefully get to the next line eventually. There we go. And I'm going to call this one groceries. And in the state of Maryland, which is what I know best these days, our tax category for our taxes on groceries is 0%. And I do put that in there. I say it's 0 on the amount of 0, on the amount over 0. We don't do anything. And then we tab through a couple more times. Warning, this rule will charge no tax. And that's what I was going for. And so we see here, we have one tax of 6% on retail goods and 0% on groceries. And then we save this, and then we've set up our new tax code. And then just for funsies, we're going to go over here to the credit card tab, because that's usually the last thing we get when someone's doing a new store. No matter how far in advance we request it, we finally get the VAR sheet, and we can set up our secure pay account. And I'm going to get an error here, because you're going to be surprised that's not a valid secure pay merchant ID or password, but it's just going to give me an error. Unable to connect to secure pay, so check the username and password and network connectivity. And I hit save. And save, and there it saved it. Very good. So now let's flip back to our slideshow. So we reviewed how to create a new store, how to create inventory, and certain things like creating your pay codes, setting up your credit cards, and your taxes. One thing about credit cards, we do this all the time. Okay. Every day, someone's setting up a new secure pay account. If you need help setting up that secure pay account, let us know. We can usually get it done a lot faster. Y'all struggle through things and trying to get everything in the right place. Anywho, how did we do? I feel like I went a little fast here and I apologize for that. When you look at the video when it comes out, you'll be able to slow me down maybe. So anyway, how did we do? You will be getting a survey in the mail, or a link to it. You'll be getting an email on Friday with a copy of the slideshow and a link to the survey. Or if you can't wait to give feedback, you can go to www.cksystem.com, Training Bytes survey, all one word. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you'd like to hear about so we can plan for next year. Next month's topics: store-to-store transfers. We'll be covering quick transfers, transfer out, transfer in, and the transfer advice using your min-max settings to create those transfer advices. Reserve your spot. The email, I'm sure, will be coming out before too long. If you'd like training on your database with your settings that might make more sense to your business rather than our demo golf database, contact Gina at 888-476-7911, extension 3, or send an email to trainingbytes@cksystem.com. All right, Gina, what's in the Q&A? I'm sure there are questions.
You know, Marty, you made that look so easy. I'm impressed. That was really good. And I don't see any questions.
Oh, come on.
I know, right?
I'm not that good, and I'm sure someone's got questions about one of those fields I hit or something.
Yeah, the last chat I see is from Paige. That's in chat and Q&A. The last one is from last month's Training Bytes. Well, if anyone wants to build a store and you need help, don't hesitate to log a support ticket. We will help you build a new store if you need one. Or you can follow along with the video. Then log a ticket.
Right. And then log a ticket.
And then log a ticket, yeah. Well, because everyone needs help with their VARs.
There's always going to be some piece in here, particularly setting up that secure pay account or setting up tax codes, because legislatures design tax codes, not business owners, because business owners would never come up with these crazy rules. So I always, particularly like tax holidays, it's like that. Only a legislator can come up with, all right, if you build a new store, do you have to do anything extra for end of day batch and or smart alerts? Very good, Christine. So yes, depending on how the original batch for the end of day was set up, and I assume, Christine, you're talking about the auto post at the end of the day. Yes, you should. That may need to be tweaked. The other thing that you could, and if you have smart alerts, you definitely need to subscribe to smart alerts for that new location, because it needs to know what to do with this data that you're going to get from this new store. Okay. Since I mentioned tax holidays, I am cursed because Mona wants to know about tax holidays. So generally, Mona, what I do is, if there are certain items that are covered under a tax holiday and certain items that are not, okay? What I do is I usually put them in separate tax categories and set up a separate tax rule that kicks on and kicks off at the proper time. And let me just pop up Counterpoint real quick, and don't hesitate, Mona, to contact us for a some assistance with this, because again, we're going to do this 20, 30, 40 times this summer, probably in the next 2 weeks, and you're going to do it once. So yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Marty. I believe Mona is configured. She's just going to need to change her dates.
Okay, well, that's great,
Yeah,
because
but I do want you to show us, because it's really good information and it's a really great question.
set up system tax authorities. So I'm going to do retail because I'm a clothing store, and my rule is use tax holidays. Excuse me, checkbox, check the box that says use tax holidays, and then put in, so it's going to start on 08/10/24, and it will go off on 08/17/24. Those are probably close to correct dates for the state of Maryland. 1 day off. Okay, I can live with that. But yeah, so this will turn off this tax rule and bring it back into play. So, you don't have to, it's like, I have to get there first thing in the morning to turn on my tax holiday. And then I got to stay till the end of business the week later to turn it back off and all that stuff. And it's just a mess. And you really don't want to be doing that. Let's use the power of our system to turn on and off our sales taxes. And if we need to do, I know in Maryland, we've got some crazy rules. I know that's going to be crazy, where it's 6% on the amount over zero, but over here it's and minimum taxable amount 100. So if I do that, it's going to charge here 6% on items that cost over $100. And if it's over $100, if it's $100 and a penny, because this is very literal, it's going to charge the full 6% on the $100 and a penny. But again, don't hesitate to call us. We'll give you some help, because that was a very simplified demo there. Christine, you said yes, and I'm sure I asked 2 questions. So end of day batch, is that what you were talking about? I think that's what you said yes to. End of day auto post, and yes, we just need to tweak it a little bit so it picks up your new store. Okay. All right, can the store automatically change price margins based on last cost? I know who this is.
Wouldn't that be nice? I would love that.
I would love that too.
It'd be such a great feature.
But one thing that we can do based on last cost is, I think, price sheets are available. And John, if you give us a call and go ahead and ask for me, actually, even better, you've probably got a link to get on my calendar. Just put in a ticket for me, and I'll get with you about using price sheets so that you can do that possibly a little quicker than you have been. Okay. Anybody else? Well, I hope this has been educational.
It was, Marty. Thank you very much. You
well,
did great.
I appreciate it. Now, of course, you know me, I always enjoy working with the clients, even if I don't get to do it as often as I would like to. But give us a yell, log a ticket, and one of our staff will help you. Okay? Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks, everyone, for your time.